All right, and we are live. Welcome back, everyone, to the All Things Aged Care Weekly Wrap-Up. My name is Anthony Nguyen, aged care recruitment expert and host of the Pioneers in Aged Care podcast. If you're looking for a clinical, management, or executive position in aged care, or if you want to be on my podcast, just let me know. Next, we have Robert Covino, founder and CEO of Mirrors Australia. He led the creation of technologies like Mirrors Metrics and Care Minute Manager, and now Mirrors Plus, an AI-powered platform uniting software and data to streamline everything from admissions to compliance. Rounding out our hosting crew is Owen Matheson, strategic connector and founder of Mission Critical Group, who works with owners, boards, and executives with a knack for connecting the right people, opportunities, and capital to unlock growth and drive innovation. And our special guest for today is a husband first and everything else second, if you go off his LinkedIn heading. I've actually had a few people comment that they love how Adam keeps the main thing the main thing. He's also a project director, ex-farmer, dog dad, superintendent, and project manager who delivers projects across aged care, disability, housing, retirement, commercial precincts, and master planning. He's at his best when supporting purpose-driven and commercially ethical outcomes, bringing clarity, practical solutions, and steady leadership to challenging environments. Ladies and gentlemen, please raise the roof as we get ready to rumble with Adam Roebuck.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Are you ready to rumble with Roebuck? Roebuck's in the house. How are you,
Welcome, Adam?
Roebuck?
You guys are well rehearsed. I can't top any of that. Well done. Well done.
It's a bit of fun, Adam.
Bring it on.
I love that you said purpose-driven. Talk to us more about that. Why purpose-driven for you?
I think why purpose-driven for me in the context of aged care is that I think we need more and more people in the industry that can bring in a diverse set of skills. And I think for me, purpose-driven is more about coming to work and knowing that you're making a difference to those that have spent many decades caring after or looking after the world. So for me, the purpose is looking after the oldies and making sure that that the life that they have in aged care is awesome. That's what it means for me.
Love that. Give them the best to encore, as we say.
Yes.
I think so.
And I also want to pick up on husband first and dog dad. Tell us more about that.
I've been married to my beautiful husband for, I think, 5 or 6 years legally. That's going to get me in a shit. I'm not quite sure, but something like that. But we've been together for about 30 odd years. Yeah, that's it. I know. Just it'll come. We've been together for
love
30
understands.
years. Yeah, you just roll with this stuff. You can't overthink it. Husband first. 30 years is a long time to be in a relationship, and it takes a bit of work, and it's definitely worth it. And dog dad. Always had a dog, always had farms, always been building stuff. So it just kind of works for me. Family first, always family first, always family first.
That. And you say a farmer, that's always an interesting background. What did you learn about being a farmer?
I think what did I learn about being a farmer? I think it's part of your DNA. The seasons are part of your DNA, and you understand how food is grown. So we had both orchards, cattle, and a little bit of grain over the years across 2 farms. And you think about the world very, very differently when you wake up every morning and your job is to put food on your table and many other tables. So it's a different perspective to everything. And I guess, I try and bring that to all the project management work that we do as well. It's bringing things back to their most basic.
So you mean food doesn't just come from supermarkets?
It can, mate, but it just doesn't taste as good.
And you were sharing before the show, you got 40 or so projects on the go. Yeah. There's a whole demand around regional and off-site housing as a point of difference to attract regional workforce. Talk to us about that and, Is that a sort of a growing consideration for the sector, and how's it all sort of playing out?
10 years ago, 15 years ago, we would never have had this conversation. The world was very, very different, and there was generally a good supply of affordable accommodation for almost everyone who wanted it. But in regional WA, particularly over the last 10 years, and particularly post-COVID and the booms that have come through, investors have taken out a lot of stock. Airbnb and short-term rentals have taken out a lot of stock. And quite simply, some of the beautiful providers I work with have staff staying in hotels at exorbitant rates per night. Some of them are couch surfing in order to keep their jobs, and it's a bit of a travesty that that those that are caring after those most vulnerable have in fact become vulnerable themselves. So a lot of the providers that I work with at the moment have staff housing projects either completed in the last couple of years or under construction right across regional WA, and we're even contemplating putting them into some of our metro projects now to try and keep that continuum of staff going inside residential aged care facilities. So, if you thought it was bad 10 years ago, it wasn't. It was brilliant. But right here and now, it is quite catastrophic, the amount of the millions of dollars that are being spent on short-term rental accommodation to keep care workers to keep care workers working, because they just simply can't get a house to rent.
Yes, it's very. It's one of the department is in providing regular capital assistant grants for the industry, and I know some of the RFPs, because we help some clients respond to them. They really want to know if the capital is going to go to also building further accommodation for some of these workers. So it's certainly part of now strategies all the way up to allocation of capital funding. But is it enough, though? I think is really the question that comes back to me. Sounds like from your experience, Adam, we're still woefully short with delivering that.
Mate, I think we're a decade before we'll even get to where it needs to be. And there's one particular project I've got at the moment, which is the perfect example of when we did the grant maybe 6 or 7 months ago. It was based on good pricing, good tenders, a bit of QS advice, common sense, all the stuff that you would normally go through to do a grant for staff housing. We got the grant, which was great, got a little bit excited, then went back out through expressions of interest to get the builders to firm up their prices and then go through that procurement process. And in the space of 6 months, two of the builders, one of the builders no longer existed. Two of the builders have a complete book of work and were no longer interested. And the other couple of builders that came in, their prices were 40% higher than our grant amount. So then we have to go back to the federal government and go, well, this is the circumstance. Here are our options. What do you want to do? And that puts further delays in. So even when you think you've nailed it, at the moment, you definitely haven't. It's really quite complex to navigate.
Yeah, I know you were recently at the accommodation pricing forums, and you've been spending a bit of time there. Is that part of the impact here, or explain the dynamics of what's going on and how do we level the playing field to get projects like that moving forward?
I mean, it's fundamentals all the way back to, government, and even Alan Kohler had an article on this recently about, if we look at what is required in the supply chain to conduct what Adam is doing and to stabilize the pricing and really the skills around those trades and everything between. I mean, we have effectively 130,000-ish type of tradies and workers and builders that we need to conduct. And I think if part of this really comes back to what we've done as a country for the last decade, 2 decades, with how universities have really taken over the recruitment of a lot of the visa classes and skilled workforce, and it's seen a shift from a more balanced approach with to learn trades and other aspects to really being dictated by how they're being recruited in other countries through these agents who then provide them with a gateway and a visa into a university here, and then that really has changed the course of the makeup of our available skills. So it goes all the way down to those fundamentals, which are these are not fast fixes for us as a country. I think the only thing that I've seen as an innovative step around that is really the innovation that builders are having and manufacturers are with the type of materials. Can I do 3D printing, plastic houses, all elements that just sort of skirt around that. But, ideally, I don't want to live in a plastic house, but I understand it does provide a gap or a necessity to what Adam's noting here. But it is a big problem.
That's an interesting point, because there is a lot of innovation in both residential and commercial construction, and even in aged care construction at the moment. But a lot of the innovation isn't supported by the national construction codes. So you can innovate, but you can't build it. And to be fair, some of the stuff that I get presented with on the very large projects at the moment, so projects that are sort of between $30 and $60 million in value, the innovation that the builders are trying to deploy has been well tested in Europe and maybe in America, but we can't seem to get it approved or understood in Australia or Western Australia. So that absence of an alignment between innovation or the ability to innovate and the national construction codes and other regulations are actually compounding the want for the industry to do better at the moment. And I have, again, another example to your point, another very large project, which the group that I'm working with would love to get on with it, but we're hamstrung by the cost of concrete, the cost of steel, the issues with scaffolders and many other things that are going on in the market at the moment. So how can we build without those kind of core trades? And at the moment, we really can't in Western Australia or Australia. So how you fix that, I don't know, but there's certainly a want to innovate, but regulation doesn't really allow you to do that.
Yeah.
Hey,
I mean, these numbers.
Sorry. Just speaking of innovation, I all the stuff that I've seen you build and be involved in, they're different. They're innovative, and you take there's a lot of consideration that goes into it that lends itself to the New Age Act as well. Can you talk about the considerations when you're building a new home?
I think that's an interesting question. Hadn't thought that one through. I think my answer really relates. The reason why I get those kind of projects is because there's no roadmap to complete them. You have to use the methodologies that PMBOK and Prince2 and ISO offer you to get the job done. And a lot of those really difficult projects, either in remote WA, or projects that need to be designed and built for a particular client cohort, whether it is Huntington's or dementia or aged care, those really complex ones, I love them, because you get to engage with operational staff that have lived experience of how these buildings should work and operate. And my observation, I'm not really answering your question, but I don't really care at the moment because this is really cool.
Just go your own path, Adam. Go.
We'll figure it out. The interesting thing I've found over the years is that a lot of these buildings, whether they're residential or commercial or whatever else, are often designed by people who have never lived in them and have never operated them and have never worked in them. So they are always trying to be compliant to the code or the Australian standard, but they very rarely have a lived experience of working in a residential aged care facility, or in a residential aged care facility where there is dementia, or in a care home that is designed specifically for people with some degree of cognitive decline or impairment. And when you get to work on those projects and go back to an architect and an engineer and say, well, this is the lived experience from the client, from the clinical nurse manager, from the cleaner, this is the way we need to design it. That is when true genius happens in a project. It's so hard to get that done. And that's probably where I spend most of my time, making sure that we try to get that performance brief at the very beginning of the project into such a position that when an engineer or an architect gets hold of it, they go, this is not a standard 9C building. This is what we need to do. And that's a great challenge, but that's kind of the, I guess that's a challenge before me and those that work in this space. But to probably answer your question, where I see the most amount of innovation is when the design team listens. And they don't. It's important to have inherited practice. It's important to have experience, but just because you've done it 20 times doesn't mean that for this particular client, everything you've done 20 times before is relevant. And the teams that understand that and get that, they are the ones that add true value to the living and working environments for those in care. And that's when I see brilliant stuff happen.
Can you give some examples on how you,
please.
How do you cater to people with dementia, Alzheimer's, or any Huntington's, or any of those conditions that you mentioned in a building?
The process that we deploy in making sure we capture that is essentially a work streams process. And what we do, so normally when you design, if I'm carrying on too much, like just kill me. I'm just going to go through it. So when you design a building, traditionally you'll have a design brief from the client. It's usually terrible. I have a vision, Adam, and you just go like, oh my God, how am I going to deliver this?
Let's join the dots with reality.
It is, mate. And the vision is often delivered either in a boardroom or over a glass of wine. So either way, they're restricted environments to try and get someone's vision. And then you document that vision into a brief, and then you issue it to an architect or a builder, or how it might be. The process probably in the last 20 years of our practice has been not to let that happen. So we'll spend a lot of time up front with the client, with its customers, and trying to understand its culture. And we'll go through a work streams process. And a work streams process has very little to do with the built form outcome. It has everything to do with how the business operates. Its model of care, its culture, its front of house services, its back of house services. How does it wash its sheets? How does poo travel around the building? How does the food get around the building? Like that really basic stuff.
Elementary observations.
Very, very elementary stuff. And then we get to the point where we try and put that into a work streams report. We issue that to the client. The client generally goes, yes. It's always full of mistakes. And that's kind of the point of it. That's kind of the way it's supposed to be. And then you refine that through the first process when you're engaging with the architect. And if the architect and the design team can't get it, don't understand it, you got to sack them and get another one. Because if they can't understand the functionality of a building, not the sexiness of it, but the functionality of the building, then they're not the right architect for you. Once we've figured out how it operates, let's make it sexy. But that operational model should inform every decision architecturally. So I'll keep reading. So I'll stop now.
I love this.
No, that's great.
This idea of value engineering, isn't it, Adam, where you're being true to what's really important. It's the founding principles of the development, the building. Who's it actually for? And is it going to look after them? How often, to give us a scale of the problem, like you're working on 40 projects or more, or hundreds over your career, how many are actually deploying this kind of thinking as a percentage of the 100% or so that you've been exposed to?
Only the ones that employ me, mate.
Yeah.
It's really simple. No, it's not. That's really naughty. It's so arrogant and so naughty.
It is pretty naughty. Yeah.
But
it's a Friday.
I would say that nobody intentionally, no one intentionally ever wants to misdirect their client. Everyone does the best they possibly can to the best of their capabilities. The only difference between practices like like ours and those that are in our space is that they bring, in our case, 30 years of experience of building, designing, and operating these buildings with operators for, in one case, nearly 20 years. So you've got a 20-year experience of looking after, building and looking after assets for an aged care provider. Then you multiply that by multiple providers, you get so many different layers of learned experience that every time when you turn up into a meeting and someone's talking about, it could be a linen chute inside a building, you've got to let the entire room own the experience of understanding how a linen chute should operate in a vertical residential aged care facility. But even though you've already built 20 of them and you know which ones work and which ones don't work and whether it's right for their model of care, you've got to let the client come to that conclusion at their own right time. Going in there and saying, well, that's just all wrong, this is the way you should design it, is a travesty. And I probably see a lot of that more than anything else, and that is inherited practice informing design, and that's as I said before, it's a bit of a travesty.
I love what James Mathias said about understanding the lived experience of the people who'll be using it. So no doubt you're also asking the people who are actually going to be using it, whether that be residents or workers or a combination of. Do you extend that to the actual residents as well and get their sense of the usability?
Oh, do you know, if I hadn't been doing this for so long, I wouldn't know that when I walk into a residential aged care room, if I can't see the magic triangle in that room, then I know there hasn't been due care given in the design process. And you're going to ask me what the magic triangle is, and I'm glad you did. So when you're lying prone in a bed and you're reflecting on everything that's happened through your life, there are probably three priorities for you when you can't get out of that room. Number one is you need to be able to see out a window in a lying position in your bed. And you'd be so surprised in residential aged care facilities when you're lying either upright or lying flat, you actually can't see out a window, and that is an awful outcome. So that's number one in the triangle. Number two is you've got to see the bloody TV, and it's got to be in a situation where it doesn't crink your neck or upset you. But the third and most important in the magic triangle from the bed is being able to see the toilet, because as you do age and you get a little more forgetful, you do want to know where to pee at night. And if there isn't a care worker, like that magic triangle is everything. And I think that's that really simple stuff of understanding a model of care and what aged care providers' principles are around that, and then duplicate. Like, this stuff isn't hard, but it's really easy to screw it up.
I love that. So window, TV, toilet, WTD.
It's the triangle, and it's the most simplest thing that can completely change someone's experience in aged care.
Yeah.
And
so Rob, you've been on that whole journey, haven't you? From ground floor concept to build and scale.
Well, I was on a board with a group that worked with a developer, Croft Constructions, who also runs a Signature Care portfolio, and and that's really their specialty in terms of turning around the format of a very specific style of aged care build. Because if you get you get that model right, Adam, as you can just continue to really cookie cutter it into more and more sites across the country. And that's certainly part of the journey there. But coming back to the reason, and part of the discussion we had this week with the pricing commission and the task force that's reviewing this for the aged care industry, they're really trying to figure out why aged care isn't building more. And I think, all of those factors, but I've just was looking at some data here to share on some of this. But the underlying theme here, and to your point about getting the building layout or foundational outcomes right first before you start trying to tinker around with all the little neat stuff, is so core to any area and any problem. But we just do not have enough skilled workers, to conduct the level of need in a housing our country needs. And I guess we're in a fortunate place that we exist, we live, we work, and love this country that is growing. But with that comes a very different challenge than countries that are actually having an outflow of migrants or population. And so the other factor there is that we are not able to even estimate or get this right. And this is where you see these building numbers and say, oh, we need 3 million homes by this point. And then next thing you know, oh, we're shy by 1 million. Like, how do we miss that? I mean, these are all things that policies and controls should really dictate with that. And so there's so many policy and other outcomes before we even get into some of the core costs and other elements there to get right before we see this happening. But I think we can expect to see that building is going to continue to take longer. It's going to continue to cost more. It's going to come from worker shortages and unfortunately, the continued material cost increase, but certainly the labor rates is the biggest driver for a lot of these projects. And I guess that's where some of that innovation, Adam, we're talking about, I think comes from, with builders kind of seeing where, maybe they can work with a new product that, does reduce some of the labor requirements as opposed to some of the more conventional ways. But those are still just Band-Aids, and still, it may not, and that may skirt around that issue you noted about, yes, that may be an innovative approach, but still, does that change, some of these core foundational principles we need to nail? But it is, it's no quick fix here, Adam. But I could say you're in a great industry. You've got a high demand of services that are going to be on you. So we just need to figure out how to scale you.
And let's take it one step further, Adam. Say you were the Minister for Building and you had the keys to the kingdom. What would you do differently? If this was your opportunity, Adam Roebuck, to do a structural reform, where would you focus?
10 years ago, a lot of the super funds were buying up residential aged care beds, and they were paying around between $110,000 and $150,000 per bed. And at that time, it cost roughly $350,000 to build a brand new residential aged care bed.
Yep.
That was a turning point when aged care really turned into a financial commodity, and that meant that it had true value for investors and others, rightly or wrongly, non-for-profit or profit. And at that turning point, and what we've seen is a number of factors, I guess, colliding over the last 10 years, and that is the cost of construction and absence of a workforce. A lot of aged care providers have beautiful older style aged care homes where they can't provide contemporary high care, and that's a bit of a challenge. And I guess I'm going to answer your question, but of course I'm going a long way.
Let's take the scenic route. Yeah,
the scenic route is cool, mate. That's what cruise control is for. What's really interesting is the cost of an aged care bed today sits somewhere between $550,000 to $750,000, depending on many things. So that's a huge chunk of capital. But to get that aged care bed right, you've got to agree. You've got to have a block of land or a model of care where you either have 16 or 32 beds per wing. You've got to have shared services. You've got to have really solid cores. So there's a whole lot of theory that needs to get right before we even get there. But if I was a Minister of Aged Care right now, the first thing I would say is you're 5 years too late in changing the funding model, because for the last 5 years, no one has been investing in aged care and all the money was pulled from it. And what that has meant is that for-profit and non-for-profit providers with thin margins simply haven't had a spare $1 or $2 million to put into land acquisition and or getting a project to DA.
Yep.
Fast forward to today, that is happening at a rapid rate, which is great, but we've got all these other things that are colliding. What I would probably do is, most of us are across all of the low-cost loans that the state and federal government are providing different sectors in the community where they are vulnerable. loans are pretty useless. And listen, that's not true. I'm not going to say that. Loans are appropriate in some scenarios, but the operational margins on in residential aged care are so thin that paying back any capital is very, very difficult for them unless they are a very large provider. So I think there are 3 tiers of aged care that need to be taken into consideration. If you've got 500, 800 plus beds in your portfolio, then you can probably manage debt and you can probably afford the low cost loans and maybe a little bit of grant here and there. But those ones in the middle, and they're generally non-for-profits, and they're sitting between sort of 300 to, let's say, 800 beds. Those guys have actually got fresh learned experience in contemporary aged care. They have not a lot of inherited practice and not a lot of legacy issues to go through. And I would be investing through grants to those aged care providers that sit right in the middle right now, because they have good practice, good governance. They just can't raise $50 million to build an aged care facility. But if you were to give them $25 million and allow them to offset that in some other way, you would see an explosion in aged care beds, which would create a whole other problem, but that's a whole other podcast. So I think for me, I think there are 3 tiers.
Yeah.
We've got Maria backstage, but before we bring Maria on, could you tackle Kim's question? Her question is, she heard this morning that they were we're going to be about 18,000 beds short by 2030. Is it realistic that we'll be able to achieve what's needed?
I hope it's 18,000. I think it's probably 3 times that.
and then some, from what we're hearing.
Yeah. But yes.
I'm probably going to, no, I'll just tell you what's in my head and I'll ask for forgiveness. So,
please.
In the 18th century, early 19th century, pretty much before World War II, aged care was provided by either faith-based organisations, or it was in someone's mansion of 8 to 10 houses, and there were a few staff that would look after aged care. And I quite naively would love to see an aged care model that is brought back to where it's okay for a large house in a residential area to be full of 8 to 10 beautiful old people living their best life in a truly residential setting. Now, I know you can't, do 5,000 of those, but I think, I would love to see aged care pivot where it is appropriate away from the institutional model that we have. Now, the institutional model is important and needs to be preserved for very obvious clinical governance reasons, but there is another subsect of aged care which I think exists. And I know we talk about care at home and all the rest of it if you can get a package, but I'd love to see a different model of care come up, the mansion style. I think there's something there.
Absolutely.
Rob, you've got a whole passion for this area. It's like 10 years you've been working on the group home kind of model.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, Min's government really put a supercharge behind it with, but we're finding it's still now convoluted within the LEP laws, the building construction. Is it a boarding house? Is it a group home? What is it? And therefore, is it a class 1B? Is it a class 3? So there's elements catching up, but it is getting to the point where we need those models. And just as this happened within the banking system, when a lot of the senior debt institutions started to really slow down with the post-Royal Commission that they had in banking, then it really led to a private debt market, to create. And I guess, there may be, there's bad things about that example, but in a accommodation model, certainly not every resident or every aging Australian is going to need to go into a institution style home, and so therefore we do need those alternative models. And my mother-in-law, is a great example of one where, cognitively as a widow now, she's fine. She is, as independent as you can be, but certainly the companionship, the loneliness, just being now, she got married at 19, so you spend your entire life with somebody, and all of a sudden that stops, and now you're by yourself. isolated, but also everything from, the cabinet wiggles a little bit. All these little items just start to build up. And when you have that type of next level, that's not, full commitment into an ILU or a full commitment into, aged care, there is a gap and there is a need for that. And we need to work with these institutions so that really we can free up some more of those spots so that now the subacute or the hospitals can even start working more closely with aged care. So it is a whole cycle, but I can see where you can take the aged care mechanism and just privatize it. I mean, use RADs, but it's not government backed or privatized backed. You can use the whole framework we call the aged care operating model. So the standards exist and they're known across the world as a platinum healthcare package, but they govern the way in we do things and work. And you can take those mechanisms and bring them into alternative models and really do something amazing and special. And I think that's going to be the next, we'd be part of the solution. It has to be part of the solution, but I think you'll see an uptick in a lot of that happening.
I love this, Adam. This is this purpose-built accommodation to suit the life the life stage of people. Are you getting much more of a demand for that? People are living longer, active communities. We've got Maria Jacobs talking about holistic community homes. What are we seeing and what do we need to think about there?
I'm working with a couple of the really big residential builders in Perth at the moment on a number of projects, and what I've probably seen over the last 15 years is an understanding of the want to stay at home forever. So I think the project home builders particularly in Perth, because that's my immediate experience, get that, understand that, and they are designing better homes to allow people to age in place. I think a lot of the state government housing that is coming through now through the different streams is also doing that very, very well. So I think I'm actually seeing that transpiring quite well, certainly from a project home perspective. And that's, to be fair, most of us, 80-90% of us live in a project home outcome. Very, very few homes are bespoke. Those that I am working on that are bespoke, they are all about aging in place, only about aging in place. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And support at home will enable that. And I know Kim, came on some of her challenges with support at home, but, support at home will bring more of that to the aging Australians and provide ideally the subsidies to really go and even palliate, the loved one at home. And it's an experience we had, and actually it wouldn't have been an experience I would have jumped to, but wife and her sister and her mother made the call, but it was a beautiful experience. And I think it's something we should really embrace, both culturally, but also I think for them, it gave them so much closure in a process of a neurodegenerative condition that you just feel you're reacting to every day for years as a carer and as a family member. And those roughly 2 weeks we had together as a family, and under that control of, we knew exactly what to do and everything was predictable, and we were supported by the right nurses and Silver Chain. I have to give a shout out to them. They were amazing with their palliation and home back then. So love where that's going, but I think we'll hear more about some of the policy meets the implementation of that, in the near future. And I think Kim did raise a little bit of those challenges, but the model it's got to move that way, because we just can't cater for the ways we did things of the yesteryears, as you noted, Adam. And God's not going to give out any more lands to us or any of these church and charitables as well.
I reckon we're seeing with the state and federal government and providers with means the desire to, and many are right now, piloting some of these newer concepts at their own cost. But I guess it's been interesting, both the state and federal government have been more open to piloting new ideas and letting the industry learn as well. So it's not all bad news. I think those that are in our orbit of aged care and aging in place and those that need care, there is a genuine want out there to make a difference. You've just got to be, I guess, aware when these opportunities come up and get onto them very quickly.
Hey, it's that time of the show where we add people on stream from backstage. Here we have Maria, adding you, Maria. Hey, Maria, can you hear us?
I can. Can everyone see me and hear me?
Sure can.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Hello, Maria.
Oh,
Hey,
great.
Can I just give a
Hi.
shout
my
out to
God.
Maria? I just want to let people know that I had an older podcast. It's called Leaders in Aged Care. I had interviewed Maria before, and Maria has a special place in my heart because off screen, once we had the interview, I was talking to her about my fears of, I was potentially going to be speaking in front of a conference, and I didn't know if I wanted to do that or not. And Maria said something to me, which she may not remember, but her words were, "You either chose or you were chosen to be in the position you are now. And with that comes an obligation to rise to every occasion," which, it's like Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. But it was a little bit different. Basically, you're where you are now, make the most of it. So thank you, Maria. I did end up speaking, and I was ready to quit on it, but you were right. I needed to take it by the
We all
horns and
need a
go for it.
Maria in our life.
Yeah, we
do.
need a Maria.
Oh, thank you. Look, really, thank you for that. But I can't take credit for the philosophy. It's obviously a long journey philosophy, but it's the easiest way to describe it is paying it forward. You're at the right place right now, so just do it. You've got a choice.
Very cool.
Right?
Tell us more about your story, Maria.
I will, but can I just say, Adam, what a great presentation, if I can use that term, and the fact that you used sexy with aged care, love you. Anthony knows how I feel about aged care. Absolutely,
we're bringing sexy back.
Right? We are. So my background. Thanks for that, Anthony. I've been in the aged care sector for about 12 years now, but my background is sales, marketing and operational. Strategic advisor right now. I still consult in the industry. I love this industry. I also have personal lived experience. My mother, bless her heart, who's living with dementia in one of our homes here in Melbourne, she's thriving. And I think I've shared this story with you, Anthony, that whenever I go and visit Mum, before I do, I always say to myself, what episode of Seinfeld am I going to experience with her today? Right? Mm-hmm. Because really, let's be honest, they're fun days. Sometimes they're not easy, but you really have to go in with this mindset, because regardless of their cognition, not only the residents but the staff, if you go in with a nice approach, it also makes their day. And you know what? They work bloody hard, right? They work really hard, and a little smile. And today I want to also honour yesterday, which was World Kindness Day. This is why I'm wearing pink. It's actually blue, but in terms of the World Kindness Day colour is blue, but I wear pink because it's my favourite colour.
Oh, love that. Well, look at our backdrop, from blue to pink.
There you go. Perfect.
There was an issue, Maria, that you wanted to raise about the new act.
So thank you, Anthony. What I reached out to Anthony this morning, and I just said, look, if there's a slot, I just want to bring it to people's attention. We're in week 2 of the new reforms, so to speak. And I've been fortunate, and again, I've got some really good networks here in Melbourne, and some of the work that I've been doing the last couple of months is connecting with social workers. Sometimes we forget it's not just the client we have to deal with and their families and the providers. It's also that whole system beforehand, the hospital system, and those amazing clinicians and allied health people who have to not only look at the clinical aspect and the psychological aspect of their clients, but occasionally they also have to consider the financial aspect. So what I wanted to ask you and the audience, what's the feedback been from people so far with week 2 having to co-contribute to the cost? This is both for supported home and for resi.
Well, throw your answers in the comments below, guys.
All right, and I'm sure we're gonna have Kim Davies give some feedback on that. But I know certainly the showering was a big aspect. But I think the co-contribution's an interesting one. I mean, we tried it even. I think it was Tony Abbott with doctors and the Medicare bulk billing, that they wanted to even have a co-contribution for just an office admin fee, and that was shot down. And I think. I've been in Australia now, citizen for 20 years, and time flies, but I'm still working on my accent. But still a little bit of nasal to hold my nose and sound like I'm talking in the water. But I think coming here from an outsider, as someone who grew up in the American system with HMOs, and then if you get a job and you can move into a PPO system, you get a little more flexibility and choice. But it is just ingrained in your psyche as a young child with struggling with like croup and respiratory as a kid at hospitals and so forth, and you just sort of dealt with it that way. And the first thing that jumps into your mind when you think of do I go or not is money. Like that's really, as my mom was a teacher it had a great program in HMO as a part of the state teacher pensions, but you still are thinking about money every time with healthcare. And we have been very fortunate with where we've been with our healthcare system. And I think the generation before us probably had it much better, but there is a change element happening. We just have more deteriorating and more Australians that are going to require an intensive part of healthcare just as part of their life as we get older, without the balance of that taxpayer side. So we will have to deal with it. So I think back to the question is how and what has been the experience. I think regardless, experience is going to be new to everyone. So it's going to be change, and we're going to have to really deal with the change in a different way. I think it is needed from the policy side of it, and also people want to have their own level of some of these services too, and that's where the government's trying to get the resi providers to think about these health for higher everyday living fee packages, so that we can even create a unique experience or something a little bit different around that. But for the fundamentals, I think there's a huge expectation that the current cohort that is experiencing these services does get a lot of that and included. And I think that is going to be a challenge for us. And I don't think there's going to be a quick or easy answer to that. I think it's, as I say, my mom would say to me, Rob, time heals all. So I think it's going to be an element of the time, but I think it's also going to be important. We do bring an open mind, and we do give the feedback where it's working, not working, and continue the conversations, because, these policies are being made, in Canberra, in consultations, but when you get into really the level from the 30,000 feet all the way down to the practical applications, and the delivering, when your care going to that site or that home, you're going to find nuances that aren't really thought about. But we need to keep those specifics coming back and have that open dialogue and give that feedback to the department and tell them what works and what isn't working, and do it quickly.
So I would agree with those comments, and I think you're right in that sense that we do come from from a sector or a population where we're used to handout, if I can put it in that way, and that's quite loosely. And I think the other thing is, for me, and if I look at my experience with Mum, so she's not impacted because she's already in the existing system. So this is for people who have not been assessed or who have been assessed post September 2024. Anyway, it's that co-contribution for the showering, and I think that's what's impacted people, and I guess that's where it's quite confusing for people, regardless of your culture. And by the way, can I also just have a shout out to our Indigenous people and our Victorian Parliament? Hence, this is why I've got the beautiful possum prints at the back, mother, daughter and granddaughter, which is actually Northern Territory land, but because I've just noticed some of the comments about Indigenous. And yes, they're impacted too. Can
we talk a little bit about that, Jacqueline? Maria?
Yeah,
we have a Jacqueline Elwell that's making some comments, I think, but I saw a stat in the earlier comments, which I really wanted to pick up on.
Yeah.
She was saying less than 2% of Indigenous have actually taken up aged care placements or been offered. I don't know if you know much about that as well, Adam, but it'd be great to hear from both of you on that. And what do we need to do differently to make sure there's equal opportunity?
I'm ready when you are. Like this is a topic I'm very passionate about. At the moment, over the last few years, and certainly at the moment, I've been involved in a number of aged care projects that are either solely for or absolutely include Indigenous Australians and elders. And I've had the very humbling experience of working in regional WA on residential aged care projects that are solely for Indigenous Australians. And I've got to tell you, they are some of the most unaged care places you could possibly imagine. They are full of love and full of life and full of awful country and western music, and outdoor barbecue,
warm beer. Yeah.
Everything that you wouldn't have in an aged care facility in a city, you have in regional WA. And we're going through a couple at the moment of designing brand new ones. And again, I've been really humbled to work with the team that's pulling together the national design principles for Indigenous aged care. And that's been so cool. Just to share what remote Western Australia is doing different to the rest of Australia, and trying to get some of those lessons into those guidelines. But I think aged care for our elders in that space has to be different. It can't be institutional. There cannot be cognitive triggers of all the things that have happened in the past, and a lot more thought and effort needs to go into the consultation process. And the consultation, like if the consultation process for a traditional aged care facility is 6 months, then for an Indigenous one, it needs to be 3 years. That needs to be done properly and slowly and considered, and you build the layers of information and trust over time. The challenge is no one is prepared to pay for that. It takes time and money. But my takeaway is in remote WA and in some of the local ones, the more Indigenous elders you have in an aged care facility, it's a better place. It's a more fun place. And if they are free to be able to be who they are, it's a bit like when you've got the Italians in that corner and you've got the Macedonians in that corner, and then you've got the Indigenous Australians in that corner. Like, it's just so cool when they all come together and tell their stories. And I think we've got a long way to go in that space, but we should not stop.
Yeah,
I'd like to.
Maria, do you want to weigh in on that? And
I do.
And apologies, Maria. Once you've weighed in, we're going to add Kim Davies on stage to give us her closing thoughts.
Absolutely. I'll be very quick. I concur with your comments, Adam. First and foremost, I've had the opportunity to work with, on the other end of the scale, we're talking a young group, a shout out to the Warrawa Aboriginal Girls' School in Hillsville. They don't have bells. When you're at school and each period there's a ringing bell, they actually have music, because bells and sirens are traumatic for them, right? So the other thing is, I've had the opportunity to work with clients, Indigenous clients, in their homes, and it's about understanding what's important for them. They love walking around barefoot. They're one with nature. That's part of their makeup. It is not, we would consider that as an issue, especially if they're diabetic, and I get all that. But I think, to your point, Adam, is we have to sit down and listen to the elders. That's all I need to say about that. And I just want to also add that I sit on the board of Meaningful Aging Australia, and we're about embedding spiritual care, which is not about religion or anything like that. It's a holistic approach to what good well-being should look like. That's all I'm going to say about that.
That's a fascinating area, though. It would be good to unpack that. Kim's coming in, but maybe we pick up on that when Kim's on the other side.
Yeah, Maria, please join us again. Thank you so much. Yeah. Everyone raise the roof for Maria.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Maria.
All right. Hey, Kim.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Kim.
How are you? Just wanted to say Adam has been fascinating, and I think if that's what farmers can bring to aged care, we need more farmers in aged care. I actually want to go from aged care into farming, so I want to do the opposite of what you're doing.
So have you got any tips, Adam?
No. I'm not going to say a word. It's all too hard.
Yeah, no, alpacas in Tasmania for me, so...
Hashtag, it's out there already.
Yeah, it's out. It's not coming back now. Hashtag farmers for aged care.
Yeah.
It's a thing. It's a sign.
Gee, you can take that.
Kim, what did you think of you and Maria have the same sort of you're on the same wavelength?
Yeah. So Maria asked the question, what has the impact been of contributions in the first 2 weeks? We haven't seen a huge amount of it. A few people that we have gone to talk to and sign up have decided not to take their packages and to stay on CHSP. Just not affordable for them. So that's a bit of a concern in terms of trend. But I think the bigger part of the equation is the effect of the price rise on the grandfathered clients and the transitioning clients, because most providers haven't had a choice but to put their prices up significantly. We've talked about 30 to 38% just to so we can remain viable. The sector is not going to be investable if we don't at least remain viable. So, which is going to have a flow-on effect to all of those housing issues that we were talking about. But I just don't understand the government's rationale in taking away those package management fees and forcing the prices up, because that's forcing the contributions up. If we could operate it like CHSP and have pricing caps on things, but still have some sort of government contribution to the provider, the co-contribution is going to be less for clients. So anyway, I think what the government has done is made it unaffordable for people, not because of the contributions framework, but because of what they've done to our pricing.
And we don't want them to stop, drawing on the services, because the outcome is that if they do, they could lead to worse outcomes for the country, increased hospitalizations, further bed blockages.
Absolutely. Look, I think certainly with your everyday services and potentially even with your personal care services, we're going to see a bigger demand for fee-for-service, so for private services, because we'll be able to probably do those cheaper. So that's something that we need to be looking at strategically in the new year. What sort of model do we want for a private fee-for-service offering?
This is a really space where... please.
I was just going to add to Kim, I guess, on that side. What are some of the positive sides you've seen so far in the first 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Is there positive side so far? Or is it mostly been...
I think it's a bit too early to see sort of positive, because we haven't had a lot of new people coming through. We, just providing services to clients as we were a while ago. We're lucky we're with Alea Care, and I think they were one of the first big providers to put a claim through successfully with the government APIs and all of that. So we've been really well supported by a good provider there. So it's all going well.
I'd like to see you maybe engage with Paul and Inbox and the work they're doing.
Yes, I do.
I had that conversation with him, but obviously he's got a body of knowledge and a community that are very much engaged. Maybe we have Paul Sadler on next week around the observation, the early trend that you're seeing. Who do you think would be good to have on the show around this, Kim? Because that's a concern if people aren't taking up packages, and then you've got to think about private services, and how do you make that work?
Yeah, I'd really be interested in you guys having a talk with Kathy Eager.
Yes, Kathy would be great.
I think she'd be fascinating because she does operate a little bit outside the box. And, you know, Paul's fantastic, don't get me wrong. But Kathy's kind of, her thinking is perhaps a little more critical of the whole system than Paul might be.
Well, we're planning on having Kathy on, so I think that's a good momentum. We'll reach out to you, Kathy Eager. So, we would love you to come join us. Paul, Mark Sewell, all our friends of the show, if you could give Kathy a nudge, we'd love to have her. I think we're on time already. We're having too much fun here.
We are. Well, we're pretty much supposed to be wrapping up, but Libby put in a really good question, and I actually want to hear Adam's thoughts on this. If we can get this final question in, and then we'll wrap up. So, Adam, how do you design something future-proof without overbuilding or overcomplicating it?
Love it, Libby.
You have an absolutely brilliant PPR, project's primary requirements, informed by the work streams, and you make sure that the floor plate for the building is flexible and repeatable.
Very good. So it's the configurable nature of design, considering where the market's going to be or the needs are going to be over the coming years. The other thing is we want to give Libby a shout out. She's become an official registered nurse at Liam Nursing and Community Care. So congratulations, Lib, on that next exciting thing for you. We're raising the roof for Libby, a long-term friend of the show. We share in your joy. And anyone else that you would like to see on the show, Adam, pay it forward. We're building a community of purpose here.
All right. Well, that's it. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next week.
All for one, one for all, and all things
aged care. All right.